Recently, I pulled out one of my old notes from my notes app. It was from 2022 when I was introduced to Emma Grede at the Goldman Sachs 10K SB Summit, something that I got as a part of the inaugural cohort of the 1 Million Black Women Black in Business program. It's the first time I was ever introduced to her. And so I took notes on everyone that I listened to that day. And there was 3 notes that I took on hers, but this one actually jumped out at me when I was rereading it today. Her quote was, "When the world changes, your business has to change. The worst thing that you can do is stand still." Now, I don't really know why that stood out for me in that moment, but I will say that in 2026, the world is most definitely changing. And I think there's a lot of people who are very trepidatiously sitting back and hoping that things will stabilize or improve, maybe afraid to make the next step, worried about what that step should be. And I have seen this theme of being afraid to take the next step or to choosing to stand still play out in counseling practices across the country. And, Emma's been pretty successful over the years. And but I also think that one of the things that we miss when we stand still is the opportunity that exists when the world is changing. In response to those changes, people like myself have been talking about diversifying your revenue. It's why I started the More Money, Less Grind Sprint. It is what I believe is the best solution for the changes that have already happened and the ones that are yet to come. But I didn't realize that this problem was standing in the way for so many people. It's a blessing and a curse, but we're going to talk about it today. Maybe you have been standing still because you have so many ideas, you don't actually know where to start. So in this episode, we're going to answer the question of where do I even start? And hopefully your next right step will become crystal clear. Welcome back to Peace and Profit for Therapists. My name is Calvalyn Day. I am a career design strategist for therapists who are wanting to help people and make good money. And for most of them, that includes starting, growing, or scaling a private practice. So I help people who are in that zone because I firmly believe that you can be a multi-passionate, multi-talented therapist, serve your clients incredibly well, and have a life that feels as good as it looks on paper. When I was a member of the Goldman Sachs inaugural cohort of the 1 Million Black Women program, I actually had what I call 2 streams of my business. My time and my attention had been divided for a long time. I had this school stream, this education stream, this you know, youth serving nonprofit stream that I had built up coming from school counseling. And I enjoyed that, but I wasn't working directly in a school anymore. So I was continuing to nurture that audience, to serve that audience, to continue to work with corporations on that side. But I wasn't having those day-to-day interactions that were really passionate. I was really passionate about. Organically, I had built a Facebook group of over 5,000 people, and I had created multiple digital products, workshops, events, all different sorts of things. But this Facebook group, which I was very active in running, was existing at a time when the landscape for Facebook groups was changing. So even though I had 5,000 members in that group, in any given day, I might be able to get 100 or 200 of those people to actually see what I posted because there were so many Facebook groups available and Facebook really wanted you to pay for ads. So it wasn't like the organic conversations were few and far between, which meant that the sales of the low ticket digital products that this group was supposed to thrive on was inconsistent at best. And the model just simply wasn't a profitable one. So to give you some context, maybe I could attribute $500 or less to this group specifically that I was showing up in every single day. And at that time, my average contract was over $10,000. So it just didn't honestly match up, even though I thought like, hey, I'm putting out this good content. I know people need this, but I hadn't responded to the fact that the landscape was changing. So I ultimately decided to try and pivot them in, off of Facebook, and that did not work at all. I did a mild survey, but again, because of the way that the group runs, I didn't get a lot of feedback from that. So I just went ahead and tried it. It was a low investment, right? So let's say it was like $10 investment to try and get those people off of Facebook and into a school community. But it ultimately, I closed it down, right? I decided that it was time for a pivot for me to lean into not only what I was enjoying more, which was the business side of things, because I knew that if I had gone from being a school counselor to a home-based therapist who built a coaching and consulting practice that could generate multiple 5 figures in a month, that I could show other counselors how to do the same. I was more passionate about that, right? I was more interested in that. I had seen the success of that part of my business and I wanted to lean into that. And it felt a little bit difficult at the moment, like maybe I was turning my back on my roots, but it also felt like the right move. And for me, it wasn't technically very risky because I was already generating revenue over there. But I know for a lot of therapists who are sitting with a half dozen ideas or a dozen, drafts or starts of drafts on their desktop, for you, that may not be the case because we've talked on the podcast before about how a lot of therapists are more risk averse than a typical entrepreneur, right? And that the wait and see, counseling ebbs and flows, that approach can often feel safer, but it can ultimately cost you in the long run. And I saw that myself, right? I can be honest and say that had I made this pivot sooner, I think it would have been much more lucrative for me. Because I was investing energy in something that was not producing results. And I want to be honest because you are keeping busy. So the idea of choosing to not stand still and actually do something feels almost like an oxymoron because you're never still. You are busy, your caseload is full, you are, working all the time. Some of you are already patching together multiple part-time jobs or 1099 contract opportunities. So for you, you don't really feel still. So maybe what's a better kind of visual representation than Emma's idea is the difference between treading water and actually swimming to the shore. When you recognize that your boat is getting ready to capsize, right? You've got a choice. You can either try and tread water and hope that someone rescues you, or you can make a run for it and try and get to the nearest place where you might be seen or found or make your way to the shore. And for a lot of therapists right now, I think we're taking the treading water thing. We're just continuing to keep going with the sessions that we've had. We're leery about what's going on with the platforms, but not really investing in growing your business without them. You're recognizing that your referrals have trickled down, but you're not really trying anything new. You're curious about things like maybe Facebook ads or, other types of offers, but you're not actively investing in those things. So the treading water might keep you safe until you can't keep doing it any longer, right? Until you are physically depleted, you're completely exhausted, you've run out of steam. The swimming isn't a guarantee because maybe you can't get to the shore. Maybe you're not a strong swimmer. And, in the counseling world, maybe you're relatively new to the business side of things and you don't have the skills that you need to kind of do some of these things. I want you to understand that for anything you need to learn, there is a way for you to learn it. There is no, I can't do this or I don't know how to do this. It's just who knows how to do this and how can I learn it? I did not realize how big of an issue the second piece is, but I actually think it might be the biggest part of this. It is that you are multi passionate. You're multi-talented. You have lots of things that you're really good at. You have a high level of knowledge and expertise, and the idea of whittling that down into an ebook or a specific offer feels like way too much to think about. You have so many ideas, you don't really know where to start, and your to-do list is plenty full, right? So it's actually that it's not that you don't know what to do, it's that you don't know what sequence to follow, right? And that's great because that means we can apply a process, we can apply a framework, we can apply a lens to it and get the answer that we need. So let's talk about that. Because what we're really talking about is how do we prioritize the thing that is most likely to succeed first so that it gives us the foundation and the base to be able to do other things as well. And I like to use kind of a process of elimination. I want you to look at your ideas, your time, your season of life. If you, for example, are entering your second trimester and you really need to figure out how to fund your maternity leave, I'm not going to suggest that you up your one-on-one caseload because that's that much bigger of a hassle when it's time for you to go out on maternity leave. I might lean into you saying, go for the intensive offers because you can add a couple of intensive clients who are going to work with you for maybe 3 to 6 weeks at most and have that be something that actually culminates right as you are about to leave, right? I wouldn't suggest that you build out a membership model, right? If you know that you're not exactly sure what life after the baby comes is going to look like. Because with a membership model, you are only going to continue to make money if people continue to get value for the money that they pay each month. There's always something that we call churn, which is people who don't stay month to month or they cancel in between times. So you're actually giving yourself, when you create a membership model, you're making a commitment to continue to give that exchange of value. And if you're not sure that that's what you want to be able to do, that might not be your best option. Instead, I might suggest that you have a one-time workshop or a one-time event, or maybe even a 4-week series of webinars or small group. That might be a better fit. What I always want people to remember, which I have repeated several times in the More Money, Less Grind sprint, and I will say it here too. You're not saying no to any idea. You're just saying not right now, right? Because sometimes what we can do is we can just like fall in love with an idea. We want it to happen so badly. We can think about all the people who will be helped by it. We have the vision of the parent who we want to take the workshop or the training. We have the vision of the people who come for the intensives and the outcomes that they have. And so we just quite literally fall in love with it. But you can't fall in love with the idea unless the people actually want that, right? So you just want to get to the place where you narrow it down based upon your desired outcomes, your season of life, the specific money that you want to make, all of those things. And then here's my favorite tool before you build it. I want you to ask your audience what they actually want. This is where that visibility piece comes in. I know. I'm talking about visibility again. When you have visibility either online or, even in person, if you're doing in-person networking or different, in-person events, right? You have the ability to listen to your audience. It is a selling tool, right? That content that you create is quite literally the cheapest way for you to test out a couple different ideas over a, 2-week, 3-week, 4-week period of time and see which one actually has some sea legs. And for most people, this costs you very little to no money, and it gives you a rich and robust way to get some feedback. When I started my Leverage Lab, the way that this started was I had a premise. I had a premise that the number $30,000 a month was a game changer for most private practice owners. That if you could, as a solopreneur, hit that number, you would have a phenomenal life. And if you, as a small group, would hit that number, it would drastically increase the likelihood that you're going to be able to have a career that can exist kind of outside of you. So you wouldn't have to do all of the day-to-day operations, all of the, hiring, training, all the different things. That number 30,000 seemed to be the spot where once people could hit that, a different level of success became open to them. So I had that premise and I asked people a question. I said, if you haven't hit this number and you want to hit this number, would you be open to having a conversation with me? And I had a handful of conversations over a period of time. And what ended up happening is from that, I discovered the leverage lab was necessary. People needed a concrete way to walk through step one, two, three, four, five, and six of getting to the place where they could have a $30,000 month. And my thought was that I could create this curriculum that would put them in the perfect position to have that. And it works. So not everybody has hit the $30,000 a month, but quite literally everyone has the foundation that they need to get to the $30,000 a month. And most of them have had an increase in their revenue of at least 25%, which is phenomenal. And they are doing what I call creating leverage. I wouldn't have known what they needed, how they needed it, or whether or not they needed it until I actually had those conversations. Because those conversations taught me about what I didn't know about the customer journey. And that's kind of my last point on this is that your customer journey is what happens from the time a customer finds out that you exist to the time that they become a paying client of some sort. And that might mean that they are buying a digital product, coming to an event, a workshop, a group, becoming a one-to-one client, becoming a corporate client, whatever they're going to become. There's a journey that gets them there. And your content, your conversation, everything that you have, your overall like offer suite all should guide your clients through this customer journey. So sometimes you have a really great idea for an offer, but it's further along in the customer journey than most of your customers are, right? Maybe you have an offer that you want to put out into the world, but you need a larger audience size than what you have. A lot of times you have a great idea, but based upon the product and market fit, you don't have enough people in your audience, or you don't have enough people in your audience who are ready to pay the price that is necessary to make this a meaningful and worthwhile endeavor for you. Maybe you have a lot of people in your audience who are ready to pay a small ticket price, but not really to pay a big ticket price. Maybe you don't have a lot of people in your audience who are, have access to, a corporate space where they could hire you, but you have a lot of people in your audience who have access to a nonprofit that could write a grant. So choosing the right solution for your audience and the right container for the audience that you have is about understanding who your customer is and the customer journey that they are on. And if you're not sure about that, that's a really, really good reason for us to have a conversation. I do talk about this in the More Money, Less Grind sprint, but for some people, you want to have a more in-depth conversation because you're recognizing that you're not sure how much longer you can tread water. I would love to invite you to check out the Practice Revenue Diagnostic session because that is a key component of my framework of getting you to get the best results out of that session is understanding your customer, where they are in the customer journey, and what your best leverageable point is in your business that can generate that revenue that you want to get out. Sometimes you have a great audience, but you're selling to the wrong people in it. And that's something that can make or break your offer. But if you're listening to this and you say, okay, I recognize I am treading water. I'm not quite ready to have a one-on-one session yet, but I'm starting to get the gist of what this sequencing thing needs to be. What's next? Well, here are the three things that I want you to think about. What are the 3 to 5 business ideas that you've had in response to both industry changes and what your current audience needs, right? Let me give you a perfect example. If you know in your community you have had multiple um factories or institutions that have either had layoffs or downsizing and people have lost access to their healthcare. You recognize that the industry changes of consolidation and the economy are coming down particularly hard on your community, and if they don't have access to healthcare, and they don't necessarily qualify for Medicaid, or don't you know maybe you're not in network with Medicaid, you've identified a key issue that is coming up. Clients who are leaving because they can no longer afford to pay, or because they no longer have access to that. That might mean that your best fit is to come up with something that is a low ticket offer, a low lift for them to financially invest in, a one to many model offer, right? That also might mean you want to look for who could help you in terms of creating a grant or getting some additional type of funding, or pooling your resources to offer something, right? What ideas do you have that connect both with the changes that you're seeing in your community, right? And also the industry. That means it has the potential for that longevity. The second thing I want you to think about is, what channels do you have to have a conversation with people about this potential thing, right? So you probably have, from that list of 3 to 5 things, one or two that stand out as like, you know what, I think these are the ones. Where can you have conversations? Do you already have an email list? If not, I want you to start building one on your social media. And I'll drop some resources in the description of this that will help you have some ideas about where to start. Do you have people who are already connected to you on social media? You can put a poll in your stories or in the caption of one of your posts. Do you have some, people that you are in community with who are colleagues? Can you ask them about what they're seeing in their office and whether or not they're seeing the same things that you are? You want to start getting some real feedback as fast as possible, right? Because remember, you're treading water. You do not want to keep treading water. You want to start to swim. You want to look for not just people who like on social media, but people who comment, people who DM, and people who share, right? Those are the people who are inspired to action based upon something that you've said or done. And that is important. Okay. And then the last thing I want you to think about is, what resources do you have ready access to that will allow you to make this thing a reality? What resources do you have that would make it easy for you to produce this thing that you want to create? What do you know that it would be nice to do, but you don't have the time, the finances, or the capacity for right now? Eliminate those things that you don't have the capacity for. They can happen at a different time because of sequencing, and focus on the ones that you have ready access to. We live in a really amazing time right now where we do have access to quite literally dozens of tools that can help us create the products that we want to create, that can help us to launch the offers that we want to launch. I talk all the time to my existing clients about Lovable. I use Lovable, I think it's lovable.dev, which is a really great tool that allows you to make really pretty landing pages, and you can have it up in like under 5 minutes and literally be getting feedback on your idea pretty much instantly. You may not know about all of those tools, but they exist. And so once you start swimming towards the shore, you can find out which one of these tools, resources, or things that you have access to, which can make it that much easier for you to decide which idea should come first. But most importantly, and I want to end on this, what I want you to do is not wait until the panic sets in. This is something that I see a lot. I had a post recently that I put up, and I said, if you're not happy with your books or your bank account today, there's probably a problem 3 months back. And the reason I said that is because I think a lot of businesses are unfortunately closer to closing than they really think they are. In my community, and I live in a relatively small town, but we have a lot of traffic one way or the other. And I got noticed that two small coffee shops, like local coffee shops, are closing. One, I think, may already be closed, and the other is closing in August, right? So right around the corner. And the one, I think, is going to continue to operate as a delivery type, like pickup and delivery service. And the other, I'm not sure, I guess they just kind of closed entirely. But they were both great businesses, but I didn't think either one of them was going to be able to survive because the landscape has changed, right? The cost of food is much higher. The cost of labor, even when you're a small business and you're trying to, your family owned, if you have to hire people, you have to pay them a reasonable wage. And they just didn't seem to have enough business to justify what I'm sure was the expenses for running them. And I I thought that for a while, so I saw the writing on the wall. I don't know if other people did, but I realized that. And there's probably a chance in your business that you're seeing some of those things too. So this is where I'm going to say, don't wait. A decision that is made with intention and foresight versus one that is made in reactivity and panic can't be compared, right? They might both end up in the right space, but the road to get there is astronomically different. So, if you are recognizing the changes and that your business needs some support, send me a message. I would love to point you in the right direction of a resource or a tool, or maybe having a conversation with me that can help you get where you want to be. Because remember, you are full of great ideas, and a changing landscape doesn't just bring with it fear and trepidation, it also brings opportunity. And that opportunity might be exactly what you need to make sure that you can have the peace and profit that you desire. Because remember, over here, they are not in competition. You get to have them vote.